Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Major Crash Review Task Force. We are meeting at 2:41 p.m. on Wednesday, August 26th, 2020, remotely via Microsoft Teams. Looking at who is on the call so far, and we do have a quorum. We have 5 of our 6 voting member agencies represented. So with that, I think we can move to so the June minutes with a corrected date on the file name were circulated ahead of this meeting, as were the July minutes for everyone to review. So if everyone has reviewed them, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes. This is Eileen.
I'll second it.
Okay. And then we will do a roll call vote to approve them. DDOT, Linda Bailey.
Aye.
Office of Planning, Kristen Calkins.
Aye.
Pedestrian Advisory Council, Eileen McCarthy.
Aye.
Bicycle Advisory Council, David Craner.
Aye.
And Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, Helen Urquhart. Sorry.
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. Is there any new business anyone would like to discuss? And I guess saying that it looks like we're not going to be moving into a closed session because, as we had briefly talked about, as we were gathering, MPD is really swamped this week between major crash investigations of recent crashes and also protest activities and things like that. So it doesn't look like they'll be joining us to review any crashes this meeting. So we will probably be limited to new business or items outside of reviewing crashes, and because of that, we can stay in the open session.
Any other new business? I just want to talk about the report, and maybe talk about a game plan for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I missed last month's meeting. So did you guys talk about the report? Is that what was mostly on the agenda?
Talk about the report. Yeah, we went through our recommendations from last year, and I sent them around for people if you want to make any comments on them. Just because I think that this year I'd like to hone in on those and use some of the statistical analyses that we were able to pull on all fatalities, as well as maybe some statistics on serious crashes. And Derek Voigt, who's also on from DDOT, presented a bit. Gosh, Derek, I can't remember. You presented last month on that, right?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
So it kind of went through like what those similar stats are for serious injury crashes, since obviously fatalities are a subset. And then we also have very high level numbers for, I think we pulled all 3 last year. Is that right, Derek? That from FARS?
Yes, we have a FARS fatality. We have our fatality, or rather MPD fatality data compared to FARS. We have done that analysis as well.
Yeah. So basically, we pulled, because this task force can only review crashes where the case has already been fully closed. We pulled some of the statistics that are public already about those fatal crashes so that we could look at how representative the crashes that we are looking at are. And I think that in most cases they're very similar with a couple of exceptions. And so that's something we'll want to cover in the report, where they're like a little different. You know, I think we all have theories about why that is, just in terms of how long it takes for cases to be closed, basically, typically. So I think it'll be helpful to have more complete statistics on those things. And also, I think that there are some other reports. I was actually just speaking with some colleagues about left hook and right hook crashes, which are of significant concern specifically for pedestrians. And there's a 2018 report that they made me aware of that we may also want to reference in the final report that I was just looking at yesterday, that went through and looked at causality in reported crashes that involve pedestrians, meaning they try to dissect from the crash reports what was the pedestrian action, what was the motorist action, et cetera. And one thing we've been looking at is trying to focus people's attention on those kind of turning movement crashes. And we've looked at a couple of those in this task force, such as the 10th and H Northeast, where there was a left hook crash that killed a woman, I want to say in 2018, I think it was.
Yeah.
And also the tour bus crash on 7th and Independence, right, was also a left turn crash, right?
The one at Mass and 21st.
Yeah.
And then the one wasn't fatal. It was a bicyclist crash where at 8th, remember Jonathan, 8th and C or D, where the driver was making a left. Although it wasn't, she wasn't in the, she was in the near crosswalk. It wasn't like he didn't, like, if he was here and he hit her when he entered the crosswalk, not when he made the turn. So I don't know if that counts.
The cyclist on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That was 12th and D, because I know that was right next to Watkins.
And there's CVS there.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, but that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not, that probably doesn't count. Who's the report by?
The report is by, hold on. I can, I believe it's a public report, finalized report. So I should be able to send it out to you all. Let me just pull it up. It was sorry, my file is taking a minute to come up. There's a report done for our pedestrian safety group. And I'm not sure when it was initiated. It was published in 2018.
Huh. It's specific to crashes in DC or?
Yes. They looked at causality. Yeah, I'll share it with everybody. I mean, I think that, like, I think the original impetus of this specific task force was only to look at fatalities. I just think it gives us a little more depth if we can talk a little about other crashes. And also things like failure to yield, which frankly are easier to reconstruct sometimes when the person who was struck was not deceased, was not deceased
Right.
at the end of the crash. So, hey, Leon, thanks for joining us. I will show it to you and then I will send it around. And I honestly don't know where it might be on our website, but I'll just pull it up so everybody can take a look at it while I'm through it too.
That's good.
I'm sorry, it's so small.
Yeah, I think we're mandated to look at all crashes done by the major crash review, the major crash unit, which is mostly fatalities, but there's nothing that stops us from looking at other crashes.
Okay,
including the non-fatal ones that those do.
Yeah, this was done by a project team at Morgan State University. In any case, so we can pull up some of these type of crashes. Just trying to find the one on.
Yeah.
I think we've entered the matrix on the screen here.
Oh, yeah. Are you seeing this too? I thought it was me. I thought I did something.
Wait, what is it?
I was just thinking this is very Inception-like.
Oh, really? Why? Wait,
I think maybe it's Linda's screen.
Yeah, it might be your screen, Linda, but we see like double.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I did that the other day too. Sorry.
It was Teams within a Teams.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're on the right one. There we go. Okay.
Yes, we go.
Sorry. All right, now I'm not going to be able to pull it up right away. But it compares us to other cities, looks at rates, etc. And then
yeah, I think if it's on SharePoint,
right now.
I think if it's on SharePoint, I won't be able to see it. Those of us off
It's not on SharePoint. I will, I just put it on my folder. That's what we're
Oh.
using right now for file sharing. So I will, I'll just send it around. I think it's public. You can confirm, but, all right, now I'm not gonna be able to put my hand on the thing that somebody sent me yesterday. This is what it looks like. I will send it around so everybody has it.
Okay.
And we can use those stats, I think, just as more background. And I'll try and pull the pertinent ones. I just was discussing it with a couple colleagues yesterday, and they sent me one table, which I'm not able to put my hand on right now, but that looked pertinent for talking about types of crashes. And the breakdown I was interested in, they show left turn and versus right turn for all reported crashes versus fatalities. And they also showed failure to yield, motorist failure to yield, and pedestrian failure to yield, meaning who has the right of way, right? And that's when nobody's turning. It's like this one going this way, this one going that way, and then they fail to yield. So I think those are interesting stats to bring into our discussion as well. And yeah, so just to give a sense of what we're hoping we can hopefully identify with some of that stuff is like, I guess I can make the announcement. So our highway safety office has moved within our Vision Zero division, which is kind of probably weirdly insidery for most of you who are not in DDOT, but I think it's going to be helpful in the future. They do a lot of the NHTSA funded or all of the NHTSA funded safety education work. And so that will be more coordinated with Vision Zero in the future. There's some stuff we do as part of our NHTSA mandate, regardless, all of which is important and good, but just to try and be better coordinated and hopefully amplify some of that stuff more. And they're doing some stuff on the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, for example, right now. And I think that's going to be long-term really positive overall. But I am hoping that some of the findings from this and the Major Crash Review Task Force can kind of push forward that messaging and improve our performance on the communication side and marketing side. And then obviously also in terms of our interventions, we already have a left turn traffic calming intervention that we've been doing for I guess a year and a half, I want to say now. Those kind of speed bumps that are basically on the center line. That's the new design, is kind of more like a speed bump design. And I think that those have been pretty positive, and we're still evaluating their performance here in DC, but other cities have found them very positive. So things like that, I just want to look at how much we can either correspond with those, or if our findings are different, obviously we want to highlight that also.
Yeah, and maybe why. I will say I'm really interested to look at this report, but I have a lot more confidence in the major crash units assessment of what happens than I do in the district level police investigations.
There definitely seems to be variability in the quality of the investigations, but some very basic things like, was the car turning right or left?
Yeah.
They capture that correctly. Failure to yield, maybe, potentially more.
The one that actually gets me that scrolled by is the DART dash thing. Because my own view is like, if you have the right of way, there's no DART dash issue. Because drivers have to expect you. It's their legal duty to slow down and expect you to be there. They don't have a right to continue at speed under our regulations.
Yes, but we do have human limitations with drivers as well.
Well, Leon, that's a psychological point that's not reflected in the law.
No. Well, no. That's something that we cannot get around. We have human limitations. A driver might be driving down the street and somebody comes out in his path, and there is this perception, reaction time that the car is driving during that time. You know what I'm saying? So I think you have to be very careful in saying that, because then we lose a lot of people by just.
I'm talking about at crosswalks and at intersections. If it's the middle of the street, then the issue is the pedestrian's not giving right away, and they're supposed to do that. We could argue about whether that should be the law, but if you're at an intersection, we have both court rulings and regulations that say it's the driver's duty to slow down, to expect pedestrians in the crosswalk. And the fact that they ignore that is, you know, it's a longstanding problem, but it is their legal duty to, so it should not be counted against the pedestrian as a DART dash. They're not doing anything to dash into the road. They have the right to be there, and under really long-standing common law that goes back, you know, at least 100 or more years, each road user who is exercising their legal right has a right to expect other people to obey the law. So it's, but I do see a lot of cases where, you know, police officers just assume drivers get to go through the intersections at the speed limit, and therefore, if a pedestrian walks out, it's the pedestrian's fault that they darted or dashed or whatever, you know. And streets obviously need to be designed so that they don't encourage drivers to disobey the law. That's a huge issue. Anyway, but that's kind of down the road. That's just an explanation for why I distrust some of the district level police investigations.
You know, like, I think reporting challenges and errors are always existing in any data process, so to speak. So I am not, and I hear what you're saying, Leon, but I think the question is, when we see a table, so a good example is speeding as a cited factor. I think typically it's cited only in 2% of all crashes.
Right.
But, you know, as an engineer, it may be a factor in almost every crash, just in the sense of the slower the person is driving, the more likely they would be able to see in time, avoid the crash, et cetera. So, but we know from talking to MPD that their imperative is to never cite it unless they're 100% sure that speed is a factor. So just thinking, you know, that likely that person was exceeding the speed limit is not enough, obviously, so they don't cite it.
Or you can have
fatalities. It's a much higher percentage, and we know part of that is because they get the black box in modern crashes, modern day vehicles, and then they know exactly the speed at the time of impact.
Right. And there's also, you know, if the speed limit itself is at a certain point, like New York Avenue, where the speed limit can be 45 miles an hour. Well, we know that's going to be a factor in the crash, but it won't be counted as that because the driver, you know, the driver could be going 45 and that would kill. So it really, the speed is a factor in the crash, but speeding is maybe not a factor in the crash because they weren't speeding.
Right, speeding is different than speed.
Right.
It's legal versus a physical.
Yeah, no, point taken with that.
And a lot of them don't know what an unmarked crosswalk is, so that's, you know, anyway, we could go on, but we can always deal with that sort of thing by, you know, footnotes and so forth.
The nice thing is, I will say, I feel like, at least my understanding from talking to Terry is that they are cautious to note something as a contributing cause unless they are sure of it. So, like I said, if we see something here, I feel like that's like the minimum number, at least, right? It's not like, hopefully the error will go mostly up versus, you know, going down.
Right.
Yeah, and I know the DART, whatever that means.
Although, you know, I mean, sometimes I'm sympathetic to it, but then sometimes they're not, they say things when they're not 100% sure. Like the teenager who was hit by the hit and run driver who was on pot and had her phone, and or had earplugs in, and they speculated that she didn't hear her friend warn her because she had her earphones in. That was, you know, pure speculation. I mean, it's logical. I can see the logic of it, but I don't think anybody could be 100% that she didn't hear her friend because she had her earphones in.
That's a fair point. And it's also not illegal to walk in the District of Columbia deaf or blind, so those should neither of them be the reason why, you know. All right.
Anyway.
All these hypothetical discussions. I think for the report right now, I think my goal is that we provide more depth to some of the findings by using these other statistics that we pulled from FARS and from the serious injury report, and if there's anything from this 2018 Morgan State report that we can add to that, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think that the main challenge is like getting it done at this point.
Yeah, I know. I will get everybody the link by tomorrow morning. I just mostly, when I converted to Google Docs, some of the comments I put in got thrown at the end, so I want to move them so it's easier to find them, and just clean up anything else like that. But I should be able to get it to everybody by the end of the day, and then as long we can all work on it at the same time. So you can look at what I've done so far and maybe work some of the new information into that.
That sounds great. All right. Okay. I think is there anything else we could ask for volunteers on? I think that's one of the tricky things with this report is it's kind of like a big task. And Eileen, you've been doing great work on it, and I really appreciate it. And I wish I could say like I have a magic solution to you doing more work on it. I don't.
Well, I like it when I have time. It's not. So this isn't like a chore for me. I learn from doing it, and I find it. I don't want to say enjoyable, but it's rewarding. I would like maybe I will send the spreadsheet to everybody. That has to. I don't know how to convert a spreadsheet to a Google Sheet. If somebody and the spreadsheet was initially, it used to be a Google Sheet, but then Sam wanted to be an Excel sheet, so he converted it. So I can send a link to everybody, but I think if people could look at that and give some thought to whether they, to other findings, to things that see if things jump out at you beyond what we've talked about. There's a comment here.
Eileen, it's just me. I'd be happy to help you convert it to a Google Sheet. I do it all the time. I'm on my HOA board and we pivot between Excel and Google Sheets all the time. Okay.
I will. Well, you'll get it when I send it to everybody.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then if you can well, it doesn't matter whose Google account it's on, I guess. It could be on mine or yours.
Yeah, and we have, at least I have a DC associated Google account as well. So it'll be through the Office of Planning.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing for me. Yeah, I think most people at UDOT have that.
Yeah. However you guys want to do it is fine.
Okay. I guess the one thing is if we have a timeline, sometimes that's helpful. Would that be helpful for you, Eileen, to think about a timeline, or is it you're just doing it when you can?
I'm doing it when I can is the basic problem there. It's like right now my schedule looks clear, but I do have these issues going on with my parents, and that's generally what interferes. Parents and then some of the PAC stuff. It's like, everything got derailed by the Vision Zero bill coming up for a vote because we had to put together a letter. And anyway, I don't want to gripe at you. It's not your fault.
Okay, so maybe an acceptable goal is that we try and bring a draft back to the group 2 meetings from now. So like end of October.
Yeah.
And
I think that's very reasonable.
Okay, so let's try. And,
I'll aim for September.
Okay, great. And then we'll see what we can get to the group. And I think that'll be fine. I think it'll be a good update from last year and maybe some more in-depth and a little more information about other types of crashes. Mm-hmm. So just as an example, I got a question from Councilmember Mendelson. I'm not going to remember. It was something implying, I don't think it was implying that pedestrians who were killed were drunk mainly, but it was something in that vein. And I just remember my response was, like fatalities are not represented. Fatalities are not always perfectly representative of all crashes, and so I said we were going to look at more than just the fatal crashes for that discussion of like contributing causes. And it would be nice to have some kind of answers, what are contributing causes with this bigger data set, because the bottom line is just our last year's report had 17, I think it was 17 crashes total, right, that we reviewed. So
yeah, this year it'll be 40.
Yeah, so that's better, but it's very small compared.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Just so you understand, like we have a total of 27,000 reported crashes per year in DC. So it's obviously a tiny subset. And even just looking at injury crashes, we have, if you count suspected injuries, we have somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 reported crashes per year. So getting at least some of those into the analysis, I think will be really helpful.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday the Office of the Auditor put out a report on how the court and correction systems treat people with substance abuse disorders, how well they cope. And I haven't read it yet, but there's some recommendations in there that I keep thinking. Like I said, I haven't read it, but I've been thinking, given the number of impaired whatever crashes we have, whether it's pedestrians or drivers, that the answer to that can't be trying to just penalize pedestrians, because it's like they're not driving. This is all I'm going to ask of them personally, is like, just they're not driving. But on the other hand, if you can intervene better with people who are abusing substances and go through the correction system, which I know at least one of the people who was killed was in the correction system at the time, then that might help. It seems like with the impaired people, it's intervening earlier. It's either technology in the car or it's intervening earlier, are the only hopes. I'm glad MPD is out there, but it's stopping the drunks. But I'm pessimistic that it does, that it solves the problem. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, some of these efforts are definitely changing for the positive, but on the margin, which can be pretty frustrating. So say 20% reduction, which is great, but it is not a 100% reduction, right? So,
right. And all MPD can do is get them into the court system. What happens after that is with the prosecutors and the courts. And I want to ask Bridget one question. I know you probably can't. If it's like last month, you can't type. You can only type a response. But one of the things
I'm here. I'm from the home office today.
Oh, okay, great. So this is just a theoretical question. Would it be possible for you and DMV to when we look at a crash, look at the license plate number and see what the history is of the car for, not the driver, but the car, for past offenses?
Do you mean in terms of just like looking through photo tickets, or are you talking about photo tickets, parking tickets, and live issued?
I think we'd be looking, I think live issued we'd know from the driver record, right?
Yeah.
But parking tickets, I don't think we can, we can talk about it, but I don't think we care about that. I think we're talking about photo tickets.
Okay, so for photo enforcement, we can trace that by plate. Unfortunately, if say John Q. Public has switched plate AB1234 from vehicle A to vehicle M now, and every single letter in between, we're going to pick up all of those tickets. For photo enforcement, we can review what type of vehicle the tickets are issued to. So as long as he's not buying a Honda every single time, we can probably narrow it down. But that is something that we have the ability to do. I'd have to get with my general counsel on whether we have the ability to share the information.
Okay. So that's, like I said, it's just a theoretical question. I'm only thinking about it in terms of like speed involved crashes, that it might be worthwhile to look at past speed. If speed was involved in a crash, look at past speeding tickets for.
Right, whether it was the 11 miles, the 25 miles, that type of thing.
Right. Yeah, and how many tickets. And so like if we see a pattern of all these drivers involved in these speeding related crashes had previous speeding tickets, then maybe there's some recommendations we can make based on that.
The only issue I could see running into on that is, yes, we can see if plate AB1234 was issued several speeding tickets. It doesn't necessarily mean that driver was the person who incurred the speeding tickets, number one. And number two, the tickets are going to remain on the record even if they're adjudicated out and dismissed. And if they're adjudicated out and dismissed, although it may still, it is still something that happened, it's not something we can necessarily hold against the person.
Right, I agree with that. So. Yeah, so if you, I'm not, again, not asking.
It would be a high level of filtration.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, just like I said, I just want you to know if it's possible, because it's just something I'm thinking about for, not for this report, but for the future.
Yeah, we absolutely have the capability to search by tag number. Yes.
And it shouldn't be, I don't think it would be that burdensome, because we're not, like for this year, we're talking about 20 crashes total over the last 2 years. And again, I wouldn't ask you to do that, but I would not, you know, given the number of crashes we look at, I expect this wouldn't be that burdensome.
Well, again, though, I question how useful the information will be, just because, you know, Bob got a ticket in AB 1234, but he also got 17 tickets in Virginia tag TUX 1212. You know, and it's not going to tie in because
Right.
It's a photo enforcement ticket, and the Virginia vehicle is registered to his mom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe experiment with it down the line. You know, try 1 or 2, see what comes up.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can talk about that later.
Sure thing.
Thanks. Anything else?
I found the table I was looking for what it's worth. I don't think it's legible in my email though. Hold on. Let's see. I'll just post it to the chat. It does have the dart out, which I know you hate, but it's a pretty low percentage. And it talks about turns and again, this is somewhere in the report. I just am not being able to put my hand on it. But there's a version of this in the report that's kind of hard to read. That gives each scenario like a 1B, 1C, 3D like code. Anyway, but the bottom line is 20 of fatal, and so of all crashes, 20 with pedestrians. This is from 3 years, from 2012 to 2014. 21% were left turn parallel paths, meaning kind of both approaching the intersection and the left turn. Mm-hmm. The scenario of like both the fatality at 10th and H and the Independence and 7th.
Yeah.
And then so that's 21% of all crashes. It's 15% of all the fatal crashes. And then right turn is only 5%. So parallel paths, right hook. Mm-hmm. This is pedestrian. Is 5% of all crashes, and 4% of all fatal and disabling. The disabling is kind of an older term for serious injury that was used in the system.
Yeah.
And then the notes on failure to yield, I guess, are conflicting paths, like, you know, right angle paths. Those are the other big two. So motorist failure to yield, they cite as 12% of them, and pedestrian failure to yield, they cite as 9%. And those are in all crashes. Anyway, so I think that's the kind of thing that may be helpful to talk about for the pedestrian crashes specifically.
Yeah. Did the report look at all at the SUV issue?
That is a great question. I have not read it yet. I'm going to send it right after this. I'll email everybody.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
And you can read it through. It's a 368-page report, so it's a bit of a bear, but it's got a lot of good stuff in it, and I think it would be great to try and pull from that to give some depth on the. And it looks like a lot of the crashes are broken out in this fatal and severe injury. They call it disabling injuries, and all other crashes. So I think that's helpful because we can talk about different.
Yeah.
And there's also a whole section on bikes too, so we can talk about that too because we have we're trying to think, have we done any bike fatalities yet? We've done one, right?
No, we've had a few. We had the one at 12th and D or wherever that was in Southeast that we just talked about that was serious injury. There was the one at Florida and First.
Yeah. There's the one at Constitution and 12th.
That's one I remember.
Right. Yeah. Have we done the streetcar one?
No, it's probably not closed, I bet.
Yeah.
It's not closed.
I don't know. David, do you remember? Or he's gone. He's gone. Okay.
In any case, this will give us a little more depth on all those type of crashes because there's just many more. The numbers are so low. No matter how many we had looked at, it would be a pretty small number. So I think this is a good addition.
Cool.
All right. I don't have anything else. Anybody else want to bring anything up for the good of the order?
Linda, this is this is Derek. We started. We have some initial findings relating to the VIN review that we did on fatal. Well, we looked at fatal PED and PED serious injury crashes. I don't have anything that I want to share in this go round, but we'll probably be ready in a future meeting to talk about what we're seeing there. I think the biggest challenge we're having, not surprisingly, is understanding what our existing fleet mix is. We have some surrogate measures that we put together for that. But I think that's where we probably need the most tightening in terms of what we're looking at from a data standpoint. So if you or if anybody on this call has any thoughts on, how we go about ascertaining what our fleet mix is, keeping in mind that, of course, our nearby borders limit us from doing it, just kind of with registrations within the district or something like that. So
I think that's going to be pretty challenging, I believe. I know, Bridget, do you have any thoughts on
that? Fleet mix just being the vehicles that are actively registered in the district?
Yeah, I think that could work. At least that's correct. Right.
I think, although I would tend to believe that would be skewed because I would guess that urban dwellers buy smaller vehicles and because we have a large commuting population, it might be something. It might be a point of comparison. But Bridget, just to catch you up, what we did was we took a look at VINs and we ran them through a program called Vindicator that basically gives us all the vehicle specs based on the VINs. Okay, yeah, and so we've been able to class what's happening from an SUV, passenger car, and kind of other, where we've kind of lumped everything else in standpoint. We're just trying to figure out, and for a surrogate measure, what we did was we took a look at our PDO rear end crashes throughout the district, as we have no real reason to believe that would not represent our general vehicle mix, as you're just as likely to be involved in a rear end crash if you're a large vehicle or small, although there could be some minor skews there based on, your ability to stop quickly in a larger vehicle. But we're looking for some way to kind of come up with a denominator to figure out like how to actually perform an accurate comparison.
Okay, and the comparison that you've done so far is based on vehicles that you have the VINs for that have been in crashes?
That's correct. We're working with MPD crash data, 4.5 years of it, and our kind of control or baseline group was rear end PDOs.
Okay. Go ahead. Are you saying that it would be more helpful for you if you could get a clearer idea of the types of vehicles that are registered in the district generally, not just the ones that have been in crashes? So like if I could possibly have a report run that would classify make and weight class of vehicle, would that be helpful?
So I do think that would provide an interesting kind of comparison point because it doesn't just involve crashes. However, in terms of how we would want that information, let me get back to you with the exact parameters that we're using in the analysis so that we are sure that lines up.
Okay. What I'll do in the meantime, that was just me, just thinking out loud. Let me get with my my specialist who works on the business object reports and see if that's something he'd be able to put together.
Super.
And whether he can refine the data that way and put it into basically an easily consumable form, so that it's not 72,000 pages of Excel.
Right.
So let me partner up with him and see what options he has available and he has the ability and availability to address. And then you can email me and give me a better idea of the parameters you're looking for. Just based off of how we do things currently at DMV, I'm thinking that it's possible I could have a report run down by vehicle annual registration fee, which breaks it down into weight classes of 0 to $34.99, 35 to $49.99, and 5,000 and above, just on standard vehicles, which it's not going to absolutely clearly define a sedan versus an SUV, but it gives you a better idea.
I think that would be a great place to start. Would
Okay.
it be a privacy issue for us to just have a batch of the active VINs?
I'm not sure if we can do a batch of the active VINs, but I can ask about that. Okay.
We have ongoing access to Vindicator, so if we can pull something like that way we'd be doing a direct comparison in the analysis, but I understand that might be a complex ask.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll partner with not only my business objects person, but also my general counsel and see what information I'm allowed to provide.
Super, thanks so much.
So,
awesome.
Just for what it's worth, and you probably know this, Derek, but FARS includes the VIN up to the specific serial number, which indicates to me that at least I think it's the first 12 numbers that there's no privacy issue with disclosing that. I don't know if that helps, but I'll just throw that.
And I was not involved with the actual Vindicator run, and so that may be a sufficient amount of data. I will ask that question, and so thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that.
There's also an IHS report which I can send you where they got VINs from our DMV, Virginia. No, maybe it was just the Virginia DMV. So it ran a study based on VINs. It had to do with horsepower and vehicle weight.
So the horsepower aspect of that is something that was an interesting output that we were not expecting, and I think some follow-on analyses once we kind of get the baseline established will be, surrounding engine displacement and maybe some other parameters as well.
Cool.
That's exciting. I'm glad to hear that's coming together, Derek.
Yeah. Looks like we were joined by somebody else by phone.
Is that Leon?
Hi, this is Charlie. I got kicked off Teams and called back in on the calling number. Sorry, not exciting.
No, it's very exciting.
Oh, look, I turned on a background.
Nice background, Linda.
Yeah.
It's looking very rustic.
That's right. Can go settle up
to do that.
All right. I think I'm. Do we have anything else? Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Somebody just sent another chat. Leon says he's going to drop off. Okay. Bye, Leon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. Yeah. Well, if there's no other topics anyone wants to discuss, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have to do a roll call or else we'll be in this meeting forever. Linda Bailey, D-Dot.
Aye.
Kristen Calkins, Office of Planning.
Aye.
Eileen McCarthy, Pedestrian Advisory Council.
Aye.
I guess David is gone from the Bicycle Advisory Council. Helen Urquhart from the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining, and we will hopefully be able to review crashes next month. Meeting adjourned.
All right, thanks.
Everyone be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.